Okay. All right. Good morning. Happy Tuesdays, guys. Welcome to Coffee with Joe. I'm still doing my big mug. I'm down to my last 7.7 ounce of Nespresso, and you need a giant ass mug for that. We're waiting on a next shipment. How was your guys' week? You guys got anything to share with how your week went? Anything go well for you? Anything you'd like to share with us today?
Who's going first?
I guess I'll go first. It was nice. I actually spoke with a longtime friend of mine. I haven't spoken with him like deeply since quarantine happened. And it was nice. We spent like an hour just catching up and talking about work, talking about our lives. And it's so interesting. You think like nothing really got put on pause. Our lives kept moving. Even though we had a quarantine, our lives continued. And that just, it made me realize, yeah, we're still continuing. We're still getting through this. But, it's the way we look at everything and the way we approach it. He had a positive attitude. I had a positive attitude, and it just made my week better.
Nice. Have you encountered any of your friends that maybe do not have that same sentiment towards everything going on? Maybe they're not moving forward?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I have one friend that I try to talk to quite often, actually more than anyone else, because he is in that mindset of like being stuck. And I'm trying to motivate him to do more, to, want to pursue more in life. And sometimes it is difficult, but, it's that constant gentle pressure that we have to apply.
There you go. Thank you. That's good to hear. What about you, Caesar?
You know what? Just I'm excited about getting that outdoor patio, dialed in and get it really, set up with lights and the new coming furniture. They just called me this morning, said that it might be here in a week. So I'm hoping that they're just not pulling my leg here. But I think it would really, really, support what we're doing out there. And I'm excited to see what that outside could look like. I think we could have one of the nicest patios out there. So
yeah, especially on the weekend. I think on the weekend we're finding that it's a big destination place, and there's a lot of people looking to eat, and I think they're coming here. They like the vibe, and they walk by, they see the music. The music I think is probably the most unique on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I thought it was worth the investment of actually getting a speaker, because I felt like being able to kind of create that, it wasn't cheap either. So, but I knew that getting that speaker would really help us bring that vibe out. And now once we start adding all these, I've just been on Amazon all week looking at just little things that we could add in that are very inexpensive.
Yeah, so awesome. That's great. Okay, dog. He wants to be in the podcast video. Get out of here. That's cool. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I definitely know that on the weekends, it'll really help out a lot. Yeah. Allie, what about you?
I've just been working a lot, but I went into work, I think, on probably Saturday or Sunday, and my manager told me that I got brand associate of the month, and I was just really surprised, and she just told me that she really liked all the work that I've been doing and how much I've been putting in hours and just willing to learn. And so I was just really happy about that. And then I just enrolled into my fall classes this semester, so I'm excited.
Great. Congratulations. Associate of the month?
Yeah, brand associate of the month.
So you've been there now for over a month?
Yeah.
Awesome. First job. You're getting paychecks, finally paying Uncle Sam. Anything showing up for you now that you're in the workforce, from having lived a life where you're mostly just in high school and, not really in work, but now you're at work, you're having to follow rules, work with people?
It doesn't really feel too much of a difference compared to what I did in high school, and now it's just now I just have to look presentable and more friendlier for customers and have a more like a yes man attitude, even though sometimes there may be times where I can't have that, but I still have to work my way around it. Um, I used to always feel awkward, like saying no to people or like saying like what they don't want to hear. So it's just like I have to work my way around that and just do my job.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, while you may not be serving food, you are serving a product and you're selling that product and you're being of service to these people. So, you're right, finding a way to, say yes, without directly saying yes, and, it's also avoiding to say no. There's ways that you can do that. So even in your industry, you can find that you too can be of service. Thank you guys so much for sharing. So Tuesday is a great day because today we're going to talk about, managing our stress. And I think this is good because I think we could all use, a refresher every now and then. Sometimes we forget that stress is something to be managed, and that stress is not what manages us. We're not just to respond to stress, willy nilly. I mean, it happens, we're not perfect, but there are likely times where we respond and we react to stress as it comes, as opposed to say, being proactive, maybe knowing ahead of time you're going to be experiencing some stress. We're also talking about managing your stress while it's happening, in it, and then even managing, the stress that comes after an event, So stress is something that's always going to be there. It's not something that's going to go away. Even the stresses of your past are going to be there. And sometimes you'll have to deal with them in the present. And even just the thought of the future can incur some stress. Trying to figure out what's to come, trying to build some certainty can cause stress in you. So, but that's okay, right? That's kind of normal, right? We are all going to be stressed. We're all going to have stress from our environment, from the happenings, but around us. But it's how we respond, how we be proactive. How do we manage that stress? That's what I want to talk about with you guys today. So, it's Tuesday. We're coming off the weekend. We've kind of probably let off some steam from that weekend. Does anyone maybe have any, what do you guys do, after the weekend to maybe de-stress, in preparation for the week to come? Whether, your weekend stops on the Friday or the Sunday, what are we doing at the end of the week to prepare for the next week? Before I get into it and talk about some of the stuff that I've looked up, what about you guys? What do you guys do to de-stress at the end of the weekend?
I'll go ahead and go. Well, I think you've seen preparing for Monday really starts on Saturday for me. And I think you've seen those calls that we get on, those Saturday min calls. And that's a good finishing week. And it also prepares me to get ready for the following week, because Sundays, I pretty much spend about 3 hours of my Sunday preparing for the week, just to make sure that I have some type of plan in place where, I can attack it, right? But at the same time, I also really spend Sundays as like my day for me to regroup with everything that's happened personally, and either go on my long runs, or sometimes I just rest the entire day. But I think really processing, I'm getting better at journaling, processing what's happened in my week, how I'm feeling, where's my time been. I have an accountability chart. I think I showed you like where my time goes. Am I doing the things that I'm saying I'm going to do? And I think that really helps me with the stress levels, because a lot of the times we create this story in our head that we're stressed out about stuff that doesn't even exist. So for me, it's really that accountability chart that allows me to keep my thoughts in order. And it's really more of just a reference sheet, but sometimes it looks like a math quiz, so, but that really helps me keep everything in line.
Now, did you, always, have you been doing this practice for years?
No.
Was there a time when you were like, okay, I have to start doing this?
Yeah, I would say probably the last 2 years. Yeah, I was not good at managing stress in my last restaurant, my last business. It was really bad. I was angry. I was just mad at the world. I was taking it out on staff. I was taking it out on my family. I was taking it out on my girlfriend. anybody was an innocent bystander. And it was because I didn't know how to manage myself. I didn't know how to manage my feelings. And I wasn't willing to take ownership for what was going on in my life, and so now when you come from responsibility and you realize that you have control out of all these things and you could make time if you'd like. Before it was like, I'm too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. And the reality is I just wasn't making time for what was important, which was peace of mind and making sure that I was doing the things that I said I was going to do and slowing down. At the end of the day, I think me, I'm very go, 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 go. But the downside of that is that I miss a lot of little steps. And if I didn't have you or Darren or Chef by my side to, say, hey, like, what about this? Hey, we haven't even finished this conversation yet. Let's go, then I'd be, it'd be a mess. So it's taken a long time for me to develop. And I think that whole saying, the student of the master will appear when the student's ready. And I think I had experienced enough frustration and I didn't like the results I was getting in life that I knew I had to do something differently. And for me, I'm a very checklist kind of guy. So for me, it works. But I have friends that they don't do checklists. They just have, 5 things. And then they just look at those 5 things at the end of the week and they say, have I done these things or throughout the week? And, everybody's different. I think you just have to find what works for you. But at the end of the day, are you happy with the results you're getting? And if you're not, then what are you going to do differently?
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, doing, they say insanity is doing that same thing over and over again, getting the same result.
And we're creating, a lot of the times we realize is we create so much stress in our head that doesn't even exist. We create these things that, we don't give ourselves enough credit and we're not gentle with ourselves and we just push ourselves to the edge. And next thing you know, we're like, it feels like we're falling off and we're doing everything we're saying we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Yes. A lot of the stress is created by our own self, self-manifested, by our own emotions and our own feelings. And sometimes it's because of also how we've dealt with the similar stress in the past. It gives us like a bias, like, oh, well, I've already looked at this way before. So it's kind of your instant reaction to do so. When you were getting all this together a few years ago, was there anyone in your life that kind of helped bring this to your awareness? Maybe someone that was like, hey, you should try this?
Nobody. Trying to think. I would say that there was just people always giving me feedback. Nobody said, hey, go do this. I think for me, it was just something that made sense. Like, okay, how could I keep my thoughts in order? How could I keep the things that are important to me in order, that I know that keep my soul nurtured and keep me aligned? And so there's a lot of that list. I think you've seen the list. It's pretty long, and it doesn't mean that I have to hit every single one of them. But I think it was just creating something that I knew that I was able to reference to, and then what I did do is one of my first mentors, he owns like all of the, like major restaurants and bars in San Diego. I asked him to hold me accountable on Sundays. We had an accountability check-in on Sundays, and he would text me every Sunday and say, how did you do this week? And I would send him my chart and I would give him just some feedback on what I did. So that really helped. And I think I did that for about a year.
Nice.
And then after that, I was on my own. And now it's just like I continue to just recreate that form or recreate my routine. I just recreated one yesterday, so once it gets old and you don't feel it's serving you anymore, go back and modify it. It's like the checklist that we have at work, right? Like when we change different processes, procedures, we don't need to have all those anymore. So I think going back and continuously figure out what's working, what's not working for you in your daily habits, I think is a big tool as well.
Yeah, gotta keep it fresh,
Yeah.
Keep it fun, make sure it's working for you, update it, because
like working out, right?
Yeah, I mean, every 3 months, man, things really change. Be surprised. Yeah. Darren, did anything resonate there with you? Anything that you'd like to share on that Caesar touched on?
Yeah, so actually, I learned from a mentor about carrying a stress book, and it's kind of like a small moleskin is what we do. And whenever we get stressed out about something, we write down why we're stressed, and then we look at it later and we'll be like, okay, so what we were stressed out about, why we were stressed out, and then how do you go forward from not letting that affect you later on. And once you've hit all three, we would tear the page out and throw it away. You're literally releasing that stress. You're like saying goodbye to it.
Mm.
But sometimes, there's something that you didn't resolve that maybe that day or that week. So then maybe next week you look back and you're like, oh wow, that stressed me out last week. I was finally able to resolve it. And that's even a bigger feeling of like a weight lifted off. It's like you go back a week later to an issue, and it just helps you progress over time of just learning how to not let your stress control you. You control your stress.
Okay. So I like what you, the moleskin and kind of tearing that out. It's kind of like a nice way to closure, little ceremonial, right? And it kind of makes it, especially if there's like an attachment to that stress, I can see how that kind of, it's like a way of releasing that. And what else do you have to, or what do you do in your life to manage your stress instead of the stress managing you?
Yeah, so one big thing I've learned is not to hold on to it and like to talk to people about it. I used to be very closed off about my stress, not letting my stress show, but also not discussing what issues I had. And so now I've learned to be more open about it. If I'm stressed out or I'm bothered by something, I need to share it with, you, Caesar, or, my mentors, like, why is this bothering me? Don't bottle that up, open it up. And, maybe you might not have the answer, but other people could. You and Caesar have been doing this for a long time. You guys have years of experience. And that's why I'm working with you, because that's what I want to learn is what have you learned through your experience that you can pass on to me?
So would you say, okay, so that's pretty important, right? That's like an important thing to do, to talk to people about that. If you could share with, somebody why it's important to talk about your stress with others, other than, being able to share it with people with experience. So why else do you find that important to share with others?
This kind of goes back to last week, is like the communication with your partner. And I think the stress with like my last relationship kind of built into that is like I never discussed it. And whenever I was asked, what's wrong, or why are you so stressed out, I'd always brush it off. And holding it on not only affects yourself, it affects everyone around you. And it's almost it is toxic. And so that's why it's so important to talk about it.
I agree. I mean, I can see how, like, if that's you managing that, right? You're saying, I have this idea, this concern, this topic, and I'm gonna kind of manage it by sharing it with others, hoping to get the input from others. Someone who might be able to see it from a different lens. I think that's kind of why we have meetings like this. That's why meetings like this exist, to be able to get someone else's input through a different lens on the current experience or current topic you're experiencing. So I think that's great. And again, also just not letting things kind of be brushed off. Like, if they're important to you, if you don't, it's just gonna carry into your life until it becomes toxic and affects others. So that's when the stress starts to manage you. Your stress starts to manage others, who are separated from you, even though they're not directly being impacted by your stress. It's because your stress that's leading into others. Awesome. Thank you. Now, Allie, I know you're new to work. What type of, stress management techniques are you using to maybe deal with unruly customers, maybe just weird activity, weird behavior from your management, or what type of, tell us about the type of stress you're experiencing, and what are you doing to manage that?
So, since we are closed, we're in an indoor mall. We're the only Old Navy that's closed. I do a lot of curbside pickup, which they have to call the store and let them know that they're here, and like ask them what spot they're in, and like so I can bring out the order with the order number. And there's a lot of times where these customers don't park in the right spot. So there's like a certain curbside zone parking spots that you can park in, and we only do curbside pickup in one zone. So there's a lot of times they're in like zone B, or like they're not even in a zone at all. They're like parked in like a regular spot. And so when I tell them that they have to go to the designated spots, they're just kind of like, oh, can't you just walk up here? Or, oh, can't I just come in? And there's just a lot of times where I get really stressed out because I made it clear to them, like, hey, like we're only doing curbside pickup at this spot. And when I let them know that how to get there from where their location is, they're just like, well, can't you just walk up here? And they just like deny me, and they just say they want it delivered to them, to the point where I have to like just tell them like I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, and like they just kind of give me an attitude on the phone, and like I just kind of have to take deep breaths, and like I try to just stay calm, and I can't really do anything in that moment, but a lot of times when I do get off the phone, I just kind of like I let out like a big breath, like, oh my gosh, and like I just like breathe in and out to let it out rather than bottling it up. So that's like one way. And then another way is when I have customers wait at the main entrance, and I have to tell them like the mall's closed, and then they get mad at me and like I'm just sitting there like, well, I don't work for the mall, I work for Old Navy. And so I just say I'm sorry for the inconvenience, but the mall is closed. And then they just keep giving me attitude where I just shut the door on them. And I let them have their temper tantrum outside of the door. And so I'm just sitting there waiting for like one of my coworkers to come back in, and like they're just sitting there like all stressed out. I know there was one lady, she was mad at me because there was a sign that said welcome back. And she just asked me, so why do you have this sign here? Why don't you take it away? Why is it still here? And I was just kind of like, I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, and I shut the door on her because I was just like getting really mad. And so when I closed the door, I just like turned around, and I was like breathing in and out. I was like, don't let the anger like take over you, and like to the point where you yell at them, and then they find out you work at Old Navy, and then you get fired. So, and then I tell my coworkers, and then they just just let me know like there'll always be people like that who don't understand. So just let it out and just get it over with, because there's just one person out of your whole day, and so don't let it affect you.
Good. I got three things from your Old Navy incidences. The big one is one that we're definitely going to be touching on is breathing. Right. We've talked a lot about how to manage these larger kind of stress events in our life and how to deal with them over a longer time, and just how do we deal with that stress, like overall. But an immediate, in the moment way to handle stress is through breathing. Right. There's something about kind of tuning into that breath in the moment and kind of clearing out and just taking that deep breath. And then, like you mentioned, when that kind of deep breath out, that sigh of relief, right? Why is that even a phrase? Is because there's something about taking a deep breath and letting out all your air, not just like a half breath and you leave like this half negative energy of air in your belly, right? You just want to clear it all out. And there's something about breathing that, is really, really good for us in those very, very in the moment stresses. Right, the stresses that they kind of come and go, but it's like, how do we deal with them in that moment? Like if I'm at the host stand dealing with somebody that is unruly or is difficult, there's something about taking breaths, even just while you're in it, like taking a deep breath before you say something, right? Because in that moment where you're taking a deep breath, you're like, okay, I know I want to say this, but I'm not going to, because you're taking a second to kind of center yourself and say, hey, like, I'm going to make sure my actions are aligned with who I am. And that's how I'm going to manage this stress that's happening to me. Another thing that you mentioned was kind of, these people who they're just one person in your life. They're just passing through in that day. They might be having a bad day, or maybe they're just in a hurry. So there's a couple things that, you mentioned is like, you don't have control over over who comes in your life and when and how they deal with you. You don't have any control. You can't just wish everybody who comes up to the door is going to be nice. Right. Everyone who comes to the host stand, I wish they would be nice, but I can't. So I can't control that. It would make me stressed out if I were always expecting people to be a certain way, so kind of relinquishing that control and knowing like you don't have any control over who comes up and how they treat you. And, I think perspective too, like as Cesar mentioned, like how we, create that stress in our minds, that's just of our own manifestation, right? When I'm afraid, it's because of my own manifestation of fears that I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. So I'm stressed out and I don't want to do it, but that's my own fear. So just knowing that, hey, having the perspective that, that's not like someone's going to be in my life forever. They're not always going to be stressing me out. They're not like this horrible person to me. They're just coming in and out, right? And the least you can do is just do your work, right? Just be of service. You had no control over how they're going to act, but you have control of how you're going to respond and how you're going to act in that situation, and make sure that how you act is aligned. And I feel like that's a good way to manage that stress. Hi, Monica. Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Happy to see you.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
All good. We're talking about stress management, and just heard from Cesar, Ali, and Darren about some of the ways that they manage their stress and what
Joe,
they use.
real quick, I wanted to add in with Allison. Just remember, there's two things that I've always learned at a young age that I was taught. I wish I would have learned at your age, but at a younger age, like 2 years ago. One, it has nothing to do with you. Those people are dealing with something that's them. And then two, how you respond is your responsibility. So those two things have always stuck with me, and they allow me to say, okay, take a step back and say, that person is just miserable and has nothing to do with me. Don't take it that personal. I'm not saying it's not hard, because I'm a very, very hot-headed person. And then, again, how do I respond? That's what I'm in control of, and that's my responsibility. So those two things hand in hand have really allowed me to respond differently and deal with stress and people at a whole different level now.
I like that. Thank you, Cesar. I think the first thing you said, that those people have nothing to do with you, right? They have their own issue.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Like how they're responding to you has nothing to do with you. This is something this is their problem. This is their issue. This is how it's not because today I'm going to pick on Allison. No, it's just, they're just miserable people, and they got some work to do. Right. But when you realize that it's not really personal towards you, it makes it a little bit easier, because you realize like, it's not a personal attack on me. This person, one, they've probably been doing this their entire life. Nobody's ever told them anything. People are probably afraid of them, because most of these people are alpha males, or, have this masculine energy, and everybody's afraid of them. So typically those people don't get a lot of feedback. So.
And then the second thing was our response is our response.
Yeah.
I like that. So Monica, how about you? How are you managing stress? What do you do to manage your stress instead of letting the stress manage you?
Number one, exercise. I feel like going on walks like helps me reset and just helps me deal with everyday stressors just a little bit better. Walking the dog, meditating, although sometimes it's really hard for me to like actually get into like that relaxation mode. I find that it does really help if I just take like 5 minutes to just like close my eyes and just listen to something on YouTube that like guides me through like a meditation. I think also like acts of self-care help me cope with stress. So whether that's like taking care of myself, like doing like a mask on my face, or hanging out with girlfriends, or going to get something to eat that I normally don't eat, that kind of helps me cope with stress.
Nice. Yeah, the meditation, it's a practice of meditation, right? One does not meditate, one practices meditation. And some of those things that like, you do have to kind of do it regularly to get the benefit, because you're right. There's sometimes when you're sitting there for the 5 minutes, like it's really hard to just stop thinking about things. But it does take practice. And that is another big tip for stress management is meditating, taking the time to try to not necessarily get out of yourself, but get more within yourself. You're trying to mostly just get out of other things, right? Because you have all these areas in your life, these buckets in your life that you got your hand into. You're doing all these things, but you're now just trying to, for a little bit of time out of the day, do something for yourself and kind of just hone in on your own body and tune into that. And slow.
I have another one.
You just said slow down.
I have another one.
Go ahead.
Well, with my nutrition coaching practice, a lot of my clients always have a lot of stress in their lives. And so what I learned in the certification was that taking 5-minute actions, or helping the client figure out what their 5-minute daily action is, helps them to de-stress a little bit. So whether that's going for a 5-minute walk or doing something for 5 minutes that helps them disconnect from whatever it is they're currently experiencing, helps a lot. And another one is just sleep quality. Like a lot of like your stress has to do with your quality of sleep. If you're getting shitty sleep, you're going to feel super anxious and stressed out. So that's another thing that I have to tell my clients when they're experiencing like a lot of stress.
Yeah, sleep is big. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure we always try to get the best sleep we can, but sometimes it's hard to. But can anyone here, raise your hand if you relate to being more stressed out when you don't get enough sleep?
I was in denial for a long time. I was like a 4 to 5 hour sleep guy for like 10 years. So nobody could change my mind. I was like, no, I can do this shit. I'm built for it. And then like 2 years ago, I just hit like a wall and I didn't know what was happening to me. But the more I started studying it, everybody says like, oh, I could operate on this much sleep. They say there's like 0.5% or 1%. You have to have like this certain like, there's like this certain body, like is some biology to some chemistry to your body. And it's not like you could develop it. It's either you have it or you don't. And 99% of the population doesn't have it. And I thought I was one of those 1% that had it. And then like 2 years ago, I realized that I was just getting older and I don't have that kind of energy anymore. And yeah, now that I have 6 to 8 hours of sleep, 6, I feel it. 8, I feel really good. But typically I sleep about 6 to 7 hours.
Nice.
So.
I like this theme of in stress management that involves, taking care of your body and taking care of your health and just taking care of yourself. What else do you guys do for yourself that helps you kind of de-stress, that improves your well-being? Like whether I think, the self-care that I didn't hear that I thought Monica was going to touch on would be like just something simple as like shopping and buying something for yourself, treating yourself, eating something good, going somewhere nice. What do you guys do for yourself that you share? A guilty pleasure, would you say?
Slurpees.
Yeah.
I like Slurpees. So I'll literally go to 7-Eleven, go grab a Slurpee and go to the beach. I know it's kind of like sugar and like self-care, but it's like one of that or ice cream are like my two things.
There you go. That's another thing that I feel like for me is a way to manage my stress. It's not necessarily like I'm treating myself for being stressed out, but I just want to know that that there's still stuff out there that makes me super happy, and then I can just have a little burst of it in the middle of it. I know that, COVID's still happening, but this ice cream that we can have from Salt and Straw for a short few minutes is definitely a way to help me manage my stress. How about you guys, Darren, Allie?
My guilty pleasure is like pizza and wings. It's just like, I don't know what it is. I'm a Domino's lover, so like if I'm I like had a stressful day, but I managed it well, I'll order it so it'll be ready by the time I get home. So it's getting delivered as I'm like parking my car.
How's it
The
done?
moment I get home, I can just sit there and devour it.
Yes. See, I feel like the stuff like that it's good for us. Not it's one of those things that you don't have to have it all the time. We don't have to always do it, but damn, when we do that, I feel good. How about you, Allie?
I like going to the pool or to the beach and just relaxing and listening to my music. I think another way, if I don't want to go to the pool, or like it's like really too hot and I don't want to go out, I just like to, I guess, just like do my skincare routine. Lately I haven't been doing that because I've just been so tired, or I just never really have time for it, or I'm putting my time towards something else. So whenever I do feel like I need to de-stress, I do my skincare routine, and then like what Monica said, I might put on a face mask or anything like that and just relax. And then usually that, or I read. I like to read. And just going out on drives. That's what I also like to do, just going out and finding cool places and stuff like that, exploring. So it's really good. That's what I would want to do when I do have time like that.
How about you, Monica?
I really like getting a coffee that is not the healthiest. And I drink it like Better Buzz is like my favorite coffee drink, and I'll get like the sugary one, and then I'll go either walk around, or like I like to just like cuddle with Rocco. Honestly, that brings me a lot of joy, and that's how I de-stress, like literally 5 times throughout the day, because he makes me forget about everything that I'm stressing about. And the beach, for sure. Like when we go down to like eat somewhere by the beach and we walk around, that just takes my mind off of everything.
Awesome. So we've heard a lot in this discussion, and I wrote down several points that came to my mind when I manage stress, and what comes to my mind when I think about stress management. And a lot of these things we've already touched on, and just through discussion and hearing about what we're already doing today, it sounds like a lot of us, all of us, are doing things daily to manage our stress instead of to let stress manage us. Now, again, almost everything we talk about in these Zoom meetings is really just stuff we have to practice. We practice them daily in everything that we do, and we're not perfect, but we strive to progress instead of strive for perfection. So some of the things we talked about, we're slowing down, controlling your intensity, right? Your intensity can be like a throttle, right? You can turn it up when you need to, and you should be able to turn it down when you don't. And by being able to slow down, whether you slow down by reading a book, slow down by going to the beach, right? We find that by slowing down, we can kind of de-stress a little, let that stress kind of take it down a notch. Another thing we talked about was meditating, clearing your mind, breathing, right? Practicing breathing techniques. When even if you have an Apple Watch, try the Breathe app, even if it were just for 1 to 2 minutes, sit there wherever you are, do the little function, feel the haptics, breathe in and breathe out just for a short minute. I tried it for a week, and it was good. It was definitely something I was like, wow, I would do this, but it's just one of those things that like, okay, and once you get accustomed to it, you don't need to tell the app that you need to do it. You just need to do it. And also, I think my breathing is a little bit, it's not as fast as the haptic goes. So that's why I stopped using it. Another thing that Monica mentioned was exercise. You know, whether you're going to the gym or whether you're running, you know, miles in, miles on, getting that body moving, you know, getting in tune with your body and just feeling connected with your body can find you de-stressing by getting out of that stressor and into, again, your body and in that moment where you are, you know, on the asphalt, in the gym, under the weight, getting into the moment. You know, for me, in the past several months, having found myself, you know, closer to God and closer to my faith, closer to my higher power, I know now that, you know, everything that's happening to me, like I will endure, you know, no matter how hard these things are, I have faith and I trust that, you know, someone's got my back, you know, whatever's happening and whatever will happen, I will endure and I will be able to handle. And, you know, we all will be able to handle everything we will come across. And, you know, the first thing that Caesar said, the big one that you guys have to know is you guys can choose to not be stressed out, right? You can directly choose for yourself to not be a stress case, you know, because a lot of the stress that we do create is manifested by our own self, manifested by our previous experiences. So today, in the moments, you can just choose not to be stressed out instead of saying like, okay, I'm just going to sit here, I'm going to reminisce about all these issues, and that's just all I'm going to do. I'm just going to let it happen, you know.
Joe, you're a Tim Ferriss guy, aren't you?
I haven't delved too much into stuff, but you do mention him a lot.
Yeah. So one of the exercises I like to share was something that really allows me to get to the bottom of what my feelings are, and it's called fear setting. And so what he does is you get a piece of paper, you know, and in one column you put what you fear, and then in the next column, you know, what could you do to prevent those fears, and then in the last column, what's the worst case scenario. And the exercise is so powerful. And as you write down that list and you follow it, and you write side by side, when you get to the what's the worst case scenario, is you start laughing because you realize like, fuck, like I'm stressing out about something that really isn't that serious. And even if it is serious, you're not going to die from it, most cases, right? And you know, you realize that you're putting so much pressure on your body and on your mind and on your soul by worrying about things that, again, haven't even happened yet, you know. And at least when we have it on paper and we realize, okay, here's the roadmap to the worst case scenario, it's not that bad. And that really allows you to tame that stress down significantly.
Nice. So it's a fear setting.
Fear setting. Yeah.
Something about writing it, taking an inventory of your fears.
Yeah. Which is why we do our roadmaps, right? It just helps us get into action of what we're doing for our weekly tasks. I mean, we know that we're capable of doing it, but it just makes it easier for us to be able to look it out, envision it and look at it, and then, you know, support each other.
I like that. Thank you. So you guys check that out if you guys are interested in kind of taking that inventory and, you know, getting that experience. That's a good exercise. It's Tim Ferriss, the fear setting. Another couple more things that I'd like to touch on that help manage stress, whether, you know, for a lot of people, I think it helps me a lot, most definitely, is a gratitude journal. You know, whether you're writing it daily in the mornings, whether you're typing it somewhere and, you know, putting it into the cloud, or whether you're just, you know, you're praying about it. Every day, practice a little bit of gratitude, you know. There it is. See, there's something about it. I mean, if a gratitude journal wasn't like really like useful and it didn't work for people, then like you wouldn't hear so many people talk about it. Right? But so many people talk about it. So many people talk about why it's so important to be grateful, you know, and especially today. You know, it's hard to, you know, when you're stressed out, all this stuff's going on, and you're like, hey, well, I'm grateful that, you know, we got a roof over our head. You know, we got food on our table. We have jobs, right? We live in San Diego. Like, there's so many things to be grateful for that can take me out of whatever it is that I'm stressed out that I've created, you know, like whatever stress that I've manifested on my own. Well, this is right here and I have it, you know, and I should be grateful. And it's like filling that hole with, you know, instead of something negative, you fill it with stuff that you know, that you're happy about. And another thing that was definitely mentioned, whether it's the roadmaps, but I think it's organization, right? You know, like Caesar, you just talk about Saturdays recapping your week, right? Sundays taking 3 hours of the day to plan for your week. You know, every morning I try to carve out 10, 15 minutes out of my day to plan my day. You know, and Sundays I try to get an idea of what my week looks like. Actually, I think it's Monday for me. But, you know, being organized. There was a time in my life where I think I just did everything spontaneously. And I was just like, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. The only thing that was organized for me was my schedule at work. You know, everything else was like, whatever, like, let's do whatever.
What are your results like now compared to then?
Oh, they're tenfold, right? Like I can actually see those results. I can actually like, you know, put it in a way where I can actually say like, wow, look at all these documents I've created. Like, look at all these tasks I've done because of we've used tools that allow us to see that progress, like checklists, like Basecamp, you know, by using journals to see progress. And, you know, that's the type of stuff now I see it.
And what created that for you? Like, what was the turning point for you?
You know, I believe that the turning point was just, you know, getting into being more mature. You know, I think by the time I was in college, I was like, okay, like I'm actually in it. Like I've spent 7 years getting my degree. I can't, you know, look at where it took me. Look at where the lack of organization took me in my college. It took me a long time to finish school. So I was like, I have 2 more years to finish. I'm going to finish it. And I got really drilled down. I used the schedule with work. I used the schedule with school. I started to schedule time for me to study. And it started, I'd say, in college, and I carried that in through, once I got into management, I was like, okay, I'm not a supervisor anymore. Like, what do the best people do? You know, well, they're organized. They use checklists. They do the same thing every day. When they come into work, they take the same route to do their walkthrough. You know, I found that people, just by looking at what others did and by seeing that, I was like, okay, like that's working. I should do that too.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So, you know, I think even just being here with you guys is so helpful to me, helpful for me to manage my stress, you know, to help me know that, that it's possible, you know, if you just put in the work and you put in the effort, we don't have to be stress cases. And to touch on a couple, the 2 things that Caesar mentioned about, you know, that, you know, when somebody's stressed out or somebody's causing problems or they're being mean to us, like that has nothing to do with us. You know, we don't have to take it personal. That there's just something that they're going through and that they're going to have to work through in their life. And we're just kind of an innocent victim. And that's kind of just how it is. That's like God's plan for them, that we be in their path. And, you know, what can we do? All we can do is just try to be of service, instead of just being like, why does this person have to be like this towards me? Right? They could have been any worse in my certain situation, and I'm pretty sure that person would be just the same way.
And I think Allison, you're on the younger side. So the fact that you're doing this work now at this age is preparing you to deal with people like that. You're going to be far ahead of that. So even though those people may never do that work for themselves, you're doing that work now, which will allow you to have a higher raise your level of consciousness, and you'll be dealing with these things like nothing. People will be looking, I mean, you'll be handing out those awards to your staff members because of what you've been able to attain mentally and dealing with these people.
I love it. My parents would be proud. And again, our response is our responsibility. I really like that too. That resonated with me.
I read that every morning on my daily affirmations.
Nice. Gotta add that. Look at what other people do that are really successful and do them, even when you might not want to, because that's another thing. It's like sometimes I do the things that Caesar does because, I mean, hey, it must be working for him. I don't know if it's gonna work for me, but I should try it. You know, because I know that my self-will doesn't always choose the right thing. So I'm trying to find the pockets and the moments where I can either, you know, I find myself less stressed out when I'm trying to make the decision for myself. Instead I try to find an influence from someone else and say, okay, I'm going to try that. And, even though I don't want to, I thought I'd just throw that in there. Before we conclude, I really enjoyed this conversation. I want to hear from you guys if you'd like have any last thoughts on stress management, how you'll deal with stress this week, anything that you took away, that maybe one thing or two things that you took away that you're going to implement today and for the week to come.
Yeah, I'll go. I had a good call with my coach, John Robinson, yesterday, and I deal with a lot of resistance of getting things started and doing things in certain areas of my life. And it's just, I think overall, the vast majority of people are afraid of work, which is why you won't see a lot of people on these type of calls, which is why you'll see people on our Saturday calls in 1 week and then they won't show up next week. And then they wonder why they don't have results. It's like going to the gym once a week, right? And saying like blaming your trainer because you're a shitty trainer because I've only lost 1 pound in a month, but yet I've only been to the gym once a week. So this type of work, elevating your conscious, is difficult. It's challenging. It's going to suck because you're going to run into people that are mean to you and talk down to you. And it's painful. It's a painful process because you start learning a lot about yourself and who you are. So I would just say, stick with it. And as hard as it is, and I always point you, Allison, because you're younger and you're gaining a lot. You're really impressive. And you too, Darren, you're a lot younger as well. Just stick with it, and it's going to be painful and it's going to hurt at times. But as you get older, every year, you're going to realize that you're dealing with things on a grander scale, and your load will be lighter, but you'll be able to handle more, if that makes any sense.
Thank you, Caesar. Anybody else? Any last thoughts? All right, guys. So, I enjoyed that. I feel really good. I feel really prepared to take on whatever stressors that happen this week. It is kind of whatever we go through. It's kind of, it was our destiny. Everything that you go through, I'm kind of starting to see that now. It's not really my doing that's bringing in all this stress. It's kind of just what's happening for me today. And it was destined to happen to me, and how I respond to it, showing up our best self, is going to determine, will determine that outcome. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful week, that you be free of stress, or if you're not free of stress, that you are managing your stress to your best ability using what you learned today. Caesar, I want to thank you for sharing a lot of your wisdom here with us. You continue to share it and inspire and influence myself, and I'm sure many of us here. And I want you to know I'm really grateful for that, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And that's why I'm here every Tuesday. So
love it. Darren, Allie, Monica, thanks for coming. Thank you guys all for being here with Coffee with Joe. I'll see you guys next week.
Awesome, guys. Take care.
Peace.